Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles, and with me is
Ken Watanabe.
And Bill D'Angelo, also from Aikido Center of Los Angeles. So the topic today is, do shaming, hazing, and other dominance rituals have a place in contemporary traditional martial arts? To get us kicked off, we have a lead-in video from a BJJ practitioner named Evandro Nunez.
Why do you think there's a shame ritual at promotions? Maybe belting you, maybe choking you in public, maybe a takedown. How do they enforce their status on you? A bow? Maybe you saying os for no apparent reason? There's always something. Just a nudge of shame and inferiority. They see you as not enough, and you are in eternal probation.
When you listen to that reel, it seems to me that what he's focusing on shaming, dominance, and hazing is the enforcement of what we would call sort of like position or rank. Whether it's there are these things that enforce or encode hierarchy. I mean, that's what I heard from it, but I don't know what you guys think.
It's not that you're what he's talking about are ancient practices that have, lasted over time, and that teachers would do to students to safeguard their humility. So, like in the old days, the teacher would slap you, right? If you got out of line, the teacher slapped you, and the teacher slapped you. It might appear from the outside looking in that it's about dominance, but really the slap was to ensure that your ego will stay in check. And so, some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools, when you make a certain level belt, you line up and they all hit you.
Right.
When I was a little kid, when it was your birthday, you had to go through the spanking machine. Did you ever have to do that when you were little? Where they lined up and then every student got to spank you on your birthday. So, I mean, in today's world, some of those things don't have a place. But you have to ask yourself, like, if they hit you, like they hit you with the belt or they slap you or they throw you down, in the old days, it was an action of endearment. That you got to take the teacher's ukemi. It's kind of a funny thing that when Furuya Sensei died, all these people came out of the woodwork. I'm Furuya Sensei student. I'm Furuya Sensei student from all over the world. And then one person showed up and he was like talking at great length about being Furuya Sensei student. And then the first question I asked him, I go, Furuya Sensei ever get mad at you? No. He was, in fact, quite opposite. He was very kind to me. And I said, dude, you weren't a student.
I mean, what I remember about, I don't know if I'd call it hazing, but this kind of ritualistic dominance is, I remember a very specific weapons class when Furuya Sensei was teaching, and he got mad, as he often did, and he brought out the willow stick from the corner, and he didn't hit me hard, but he whacked me with it, and then excoriated me in front of the whole class, and then he just basically said, "Oh, the class is over," and I was like, "Damn!" And I felt so guilty because, I don't know whether I couldn't remember if I had done anything wrong. It was a Boken class. But I do remember the willow stick coming out. Do you think things like that was it tied into Zen awakening kind of thing? Or is it just, what do you think was going on there?
I don't know. And I don't know if we can't really be 100% sure if it was a pedagogical technique.
Right.
Or something stemming from having a bad day and taking it out on the student.
Right.
Right. But that's the thing is that what's supposed to happen after that is that all the students get mad at you.
Right.
And then you don't do that thing ever again. But so on a certain level, in older, more ancient times being like 20, 30 years ago, shame was a huge thing. You landed on the front cover of the newspaper for theft.
You're ostracized.
You're shamed, and then that prevented people from doing bad things.
That's like a real interesting point, because I think that the current way our society tries to be organized is it really steps away from shaming methods of enforcement. Like, I think it's like, I think of like school. I agree. Like, I mean, you don't see a lot of that today in the way teachers enforce social norms.
I don't know, because I used to be that type of person, but today I try not to be.
Yeah.
But like you're getting into this thing where it's a fine line between teaching and abuse. And then, it just became the student perceives it as abuse. The teacher perceives it as teaching.
Right.
Right. So when Furuya Sensei hits you with the stick, you took it as perhaps to be shamed, but he was doing it to unlock your mind.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
He slapped you in a Zen way to open up your mind.
I remember a similar incident totally outside of martial arts, but it's probably related. My sister converted from Catholicism to Episcopalian, and you have to go through this ritual in the church. And I remember we're all in the pews, and she's up there, and the priest is saying whatever, like, now I'm baptizing. And then, like, I've never seen that. He just went bam and slapped her right across the face. And then he proceeded to slap all the other 50 people getting converted. And I remember afterwards, I asked my dad, who grew up in a religious environment, I was like, what's that all about? And he's like, so he said his understanding of it was to wake up your religious side of you and be for Jesus. But you had to have this moment where you went from before to after, and that slap is supposed to like wake your consciousness up.
But then the priest holds back. You don't get what you need.
Right.
The priest goes too far. Forces you to quit.
But I do remember being shocked. Like, I mean, we don't really do violence anymore outside of, violence. Like, and it was, I mean, he didn't knock my sister out, but it was a pretty good slap. I mean, it made a noise. I was like, honestly, I don't want to swear, but I was like, holy crap. Like, that's crazy.
No, I mean, I was hit by Furuya Sensei, but I never slapped. But I saw him slap people, and when he slapped that person, you stood up a little tighter, and paid a little bit better attention. There's a book on Japanese apprenticeships that we have over here, and one of the things that the guy, his grandfather was a famous comedian, Japanese style, old school style comedian, and he said that when he followed in his grandfather's footsteps, he said his grandfather hit him, and he said, I remember every lesson that came at the end of the slap.
Yeah.
But he said that I do not hit my own students or my own children.
Right.
And it's really, really hard because it seems cruel, right? Like if you get whipped in BJJ when you make a belt, it's supposed to humble you.
Right.
That, but you just take it as abuse.
Right.
All the things that Furuya Sensei did to me up until, maybe 20 years into my training, I just thought it was abuse.
Yeah.
And I just took the abuse. Today I look back at it fondly and go, oh, that really changed me.
Right.
Like he would make me do all the emceeing at the Christmas parties. And I was like, I'm an introvert, and I hated it. Yeah. All right, everybody, and he made me run the gift exchange. 542. You want a cup? Hey, everybody, you want to, and you have to be more animated,
right?
And he made me do it, and like it was torture. But today I have no problem talking in public.
Right.
Not a problem at all. And so, like you people look at bowing, and they say bowing is bad because you're being subservient to a picture, a person, and all these things. But from our point of view, bowing is how you show your respect, your gratefulness to the teacher.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's like a salute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the old days, you saluted to show that you had nothing in your hand. You shook hands with your right hand to show that you had nothing in your hands. In sumo, they lift up their leg, they lift up their arm to show that they're
no
not
weapons.
There are no weapons.
Yeah.
But as we move away from a feudalistic, militaristic culture do these things have a place?
What it sounds like is a lot of people are doing these quote unquote abuse type things, but they may not know the true deeper meaning behind them. They're just doing them as a reaction. So they might just do it inappropriately. Like they might just slap for everything. Whereas a good teacher will only slap for a certain mistake. Certain mistakes they might slap. Or maybe in Zen they slap you for everything. Because in Zen you're supposed to be completely in the moment.
Right.
So it could just be people are just forgetting. They're just bad teachers.
Well, but I mean, but that's the thing is that there are two perspectives when you hit someone, yours and theirs.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And for like I said, for me, when Fu Sensei would hit me, I'd be like, "What the hell was that?" Or when Fu Sensei was rough on me and was quote unquote mean to me. Like one time, I was after class, I was folding my hakama, and there was a white belt there folding his hakama from Yaido, and he was struggling. No one else is around, so I go, "Hey, let me show you how to do it." Right. So I'm showing him how to do it. Sensei comes over and he just goes off on me and says, "You have no auspices over this person. Don't you be showing him?" And I'm just like this. I'm just showing this guy how to fold a hakama. It's folded the same way, I would imagine. I didn't say that, but I was just like, okay. And then just went off on me about how much of an ego I have, how I think I know everything and all these, and just dressed me down for what seemed like an hour, which was probably more like 10 minutes. And then I left. And then the next day the guy said, "Hey, can you show me?" And I was like, "No, you, dude, I'm not part of Yaido. You got to figure it out, man." But like, when I was driving home, I was just like, I'm just trying to help this guy. I'm not trying to be his boss or be dominant over him. I was being kind.
Right.
And so you there are two perspectives, yours and the person who took it. And so, but today I understand.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't tell you how to run the Yaido class. I don't go, "Hey, you guys don't fold the hakama right." Or anything like that. I just go, "Okay, that's your thing. But I mean,
the thing is, in a way, you're the dojo cho. You do have auspices above almost everything that goes on in this.
Right, but I try to be democratic. I try to be, I go, okay, well, I mean, I used to go lean over the rail and be like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" and yell at you guys. But now I go, I had to learn a lesson the hard way. I got mad at a friend who was a student, and then he quit. And then I go, now I know, never dress people down in public. Take them upstairs, do it in private. And then, but then I also learned another lesson. I did that in private to someone. We had this group that used to be part of our group in South America, and I took him aside in private. No one could hear, and I was like, "Look, man, you, as a second degree black belt, you got to know the difference between Ikkyo and Nikkyo." And then I was like, you got to learn these things. And then 6 months later, he quit. And I was like, I did it in private. No one knew. His student waited outside, couldn't hear, and he still quit.
So do both of you think that from the time when we started our training under Fu Sensei and where things are now, has larger things in society changed so it's harder for people to make use of those learning technologies?
You mean the older ones that are negative?
Right. The older ones that were perceived as negative. I'm not saying they actually were, but were perceived as negative. Is it harder to do that today?
They are negative.
Learning technologies, you mean open hand, connecting with the face kind of technology? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's a euphemism for slap.
Teaching technologies.
I mean, it's not that. It's just that you have to have a certain heart. Like I tell this story all the time about carrying my daughter who was 2 and my son was 3, and he went to touch dog poop, and I was like, no, don't do it. And in that moment I went, oh, my dad would have just kicked me as hard as he could.
Right.
He didn't touch it, but I was like, no, don't do it. But I saw that moment in my mind, like, oh, my dad would have just kicked me as hard as he could. And that I don't have the heart to kick my son like that.
Yeah.
I don't have the heart to punch him in the face or slap him. I don't have the heart to slap anyone in the dojo. I mean, I take you aside and go, hey, man, what are you doing?
Right.
And then I try to talk to you about not being that way, but I could not slap anyone today. I mean, could you?
I don't know. I was brought up in that shaming, corporal punishment type environment. So for me, being in a dojo was like, oh, this is just like my regular life.
Ken, was there any aspect of all those years you took Akemi for Furuya Sensei where you felt that there was any shaming or hazing component to it?
No, there was no shaming or hazing component. I mean, there was shaming in a sense that if Sensei has a very precise sense of progressions, and as is Ukemi, as is Uke, I should also know the lesson plan.
Right.
So if I attack wrong, he was like, this is not what we're doing. Like, don't you know what comes next? I was like, yeah, you know what? I should know what comes next because I did know what comes next. I wasn't paying attention and I just did the wrong attack or took the wrong.
But that's the thing is that when you don't know, you have no way to mitigate or fix the problem that, like what you were saying. You were hit, but you have no idea what you did.
Right.
And that's where I had this long conversation with Mike Van Roo this morning about teaching. And I said, like, telling people more Saibiki is horrible teaching. It's lazy. It's from today's standpoint. We're not talking about the past. Today's standpoint, it's just lazy. In the past, you told them something which is allegorical or convoluted, and then they had to figure it out, which is part of how you learn. Today, just saying more Saibiki without really addressing the actual problem, that person just goes, and then struggles until they figure it out. Today's person, I don't know if they'll spend the time to struggle and figure it out. They'll just keep doing it, or they'll just go, I have no idea what that guy's saying, I'll just quit. But when Furuya Sensei was alive, several Yaido people quit because of this one thing. Don't drop the tip. Don't drop the tip. And then they didn't know what he was talking about because they didn't understand what don't drop the tip meant. They just struggled, and then Gary, the former Yaido teacher, and Furuya Sensei would just get mad at them. And then they would call me, I'm not a Yaido person, and I'd have to be like, hey guy, don't quit. Let me give you a piece of advice. And then I would tell them what don't drop the tip means. Right? But like today's person, they don't want you to just say, don't drop the tip, don't drop the tip. They want you to explain what that means. What do you mean? And if you can't explain it, they go, oh, you're not a very good teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Because when I was told don't drop the tip, I just raised it up so it didn't drop anymore. That's what I did.
Yeah, but Sensei meant don't drop the tip in the back, not in the front.
Oh, you mean when they did like Chiburi?
Suburi.
Oh, he said don't drop the tip. He didn't say don't drop the tip behind your head.
No, he just went don't drop the tip. So one time, how I figured it out is we're doing Suburi and I'm dropping the tip. Yeah. And then Sensei comes over and he starts just yelling at me, don't drop the tip. Don't drop the tip. I said, don't drop the tip. Bam! He hits me with the bokken on the wrist.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh. And then I instantly figured out what he was talking about, which is don't drop the tip in the back. And
How did he transmit that bit of information that's completely unrelated to dropping a tip, hit your wrist, and you instantly understood he meant don't drop the tip behind your head? That is amazing.
And then the whole time I'm doing Suburi, and mind you, I didn't know what that meant intellectually at that moment, but like right after, because my right wrist hurt so bad, and I was doing Suburi, and then he was just standing there, and like I looked down to see if look at my wrist, he goes, it's not broken. But then afterwards I go, oh, he means this. Right, so I'm not sure if like, in that moment or right afterwards I figured it out, but I figured it out. But he hit me so hard on the wrist, I thought he broke my wrist. And then I looked down and he's like, it's not broken. So, but like, I might not have learned that what he meant if he didn't hit my kote, my wrist.
So, Sensei, while you were telling that story about Furuya Sensei hitting you on the wrist with the bokken, it like brought back vivid memories for me. I had only been at the dojo for maybe a year. I was in law school. I was dating this woman, Carrie, really super nice, and I wanted her to see Aikido. And I've been doing it maybe for a year, and I was so proud of being part of the dojo. And I bring her in, and I say, sit right here on the blue mats. Sensei was upstairs. He was not teaching the class. Class starts. Within 2 or 3 minutes after the warm-up, he starts yelling for me to come upstairs. And I don't want to exaggerate, it's probably 5 minutes, but he went, I had never been yelled at in my life like that for 5 minutes straight. And I had zero idea of what was going on. And I mean, I literally felt like I had been hit, even though it was just a verbal thrashing. And it took me a very long time to figure out what he might have been getting at. Because at the time, I didn't know anything other than I was so happy for Carrie to see the practice, and instead she heard me get just ripped. It was a pretty crazy experience.
I do remember that.
What did you think about it?
I just was like, oh man, Bill's girlfriend. And that's how I remember it was Carrie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, because I remember Carrie only came to the dojo one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was that time.
That was that time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like we think about these, for lack of a better word, rituals.
Right.
Right? Like, should you yell at the student? Should you aggressively correct the student? Should you shame them in some way? I mean, I don't know. I did not like it when Furuya Sensei did it to me, so I try not to do it now. Right. I try to exercise rules that will enable the student to be successful.
Right.
Like one that happened this morning, a student is brought in her boyfriend, and the boyfriend joined.
Oh, wow.
And she's a black belt and a teacher. And I said, you're not allowed to train with that person, your boyfriend. And she was like, okay. And then so she came up today and she was like, hey, when am I going to get to train with my boyfriend? And I said, oh, it's not you. I said, I'm trying to maintain the integrity of your relationship. That you have no idea what the training is going to bring about out of your boyfriend. And you don't want to be the person who receives that.
Right.
You don't want to get upset because you don't want him to get upset because he's humiliated because you threw him down. He's humiliated because you didn't throw him down. He misunderstands something that you say, a throw or something, and then that creates a rift in your relationship. Right. And then that dude's got to go, all because you want to train with him. So I'm going to help you by creating a rule which states you should not be training with your boyfriend.
Yeah.
I said just a couple months.
Yeah. And
then once he gets used to it, and then he's not going to take it personal. Yeah, throw him down. But if you throw him down and he goes, "Oh, that was for last night," and the argument we got into. Okay. Oh, so that's how it's going to be. And then you're like, I was just training hard.
That's a super interesting story. It makes a lot of sense.
But that's the thing, is that I try to create rules, laws, practices so that for the student to be successful. Slapping someone, hitting them, I don't know I know that the stress of being hit and all those things, and then the fear of getting hit and not wanting to be hit creates a certain thing, but I don't do that.
Where's the line for you, Sensei, and for you, Ken, between what we're talking about, like someone being hit, versus just like really hard training?
I don't know. This morning I was talking to
Mike.
No, to Ken about this. Is that when he was counting in Suburi in Yado class, he did all the counting, and then I said to myself, I wonder if the students down there are upset because they didn't get to count. And then I said, well, but on the flip side of that, I don't want to count. So would I get upset if you made me count?
Were you counting in Japanese or English?
I was counting Japanese.
In Japanese.
But we don't know.
Yeah.
But one of the things that like other martial arts schools do is that you don't move till the teacher says to move. Each, and then you hold
waves.
it, and the teacher, knee, and then you move to the other side. Doing that helps them, learn the sequences, but it's also a form of dominance. You only move when I say you move, and so you get conditioned to wait for the teacher to tell you to move. And then the people that quit, you don't want them anyway because they're not going to adhere to what you want them to be, and they're going to cause problems. The people that stay and adhere, they're just followers.
Right.
And so they'll follow you and they'll do all these things that you want them to do. So it's better that only the followers and the ones being dominated stay. But then that won't make a dojo good. You need people that are skeptical, that train hard to
remove the question.
remove the questions.
Yeah.
Not just people that will listen. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know how you all feel, but I don't want to dominate people. I don't want to be anybody's daddy, their god, their master, their guru. Sensei is just the name, the title, but I don't want to be anybody's somebody.
How did the change come about in our school from the way it was in the beginning? Did you consciously think about it when you took over after Furi Sensei died?
Well, talking with Cheryl before the podcast, she was saying that some people think that the school's not as hardcore or disciplined as it used to be, and then it's probably true. Because the thing is that, I'm completely militant. I mean, the stuff that I think about, the things that I do, they're too extreme, too serious. Former assistants would tell me stuff like, hey, you got to relax. People aren't like you, so you got to understand that people aren't like you, and you got to just accept them the way they are. And I'd be like, no, they have to do it this way. It has to be done that way. And that only drove people to leave. And only on the receiving end of losing and failure do you become more humble. And so today, after my son was born, and I was looking at him, I was like, man, I would die if someone hurt my baby.
Yeah.
And then I went, everybody's somebody's baby. So if I don't want people to hurt my baby, I shouldn't be out there hurting other people's babies. And so I want it to be more disciplined. I want it to be more hardcore. I want everyone to be more serious. But I want you guys to have lives.
Right.
I don't want it to be like, Bill, you haven't been here the entire month of December. And then we all whip you or I demote you or
throw me out.
Something like I can't do that to people. I don't have the heart, And so it took a long time to kind of lose that edge. I still have the edge. I just don't talk about it. I'm still super hardcore. I mean, I woke up at 3:45 and came to the dojo.
Right.
Right. And all they did was come here for this podcast at 1:00. Right. I could have been like, I'm going to sleep a little more. I'm like, no, I'm up. Might as well get some stuff done.
Right.
And being hardcore, being militaristic, being overly serious, and it got me to a certain level of Aikido, but it didn't win me no friends.
Do you think people who start now, especially if they're in 30s and above, have a different way of having their ego trained versus if you start in your teens or early 20s?
What I noticed is that the people who are professionals, they don't need to be trained.
Interesting.
If they're already a lawyer, they already know how to already know how to be serious and train themselves. And then anyone who's not a professional, kind of screw up.
It's different.
It's different, and some of those people never get out of that hole. Because if they talk about we have a Kenshusei program or Uchideshi program, and people from all over the world come and live there and learn Aikido. And I go, how old are those people? Oh, 30, 40. I go,
no way.
Part of me thinks it's deep down inside that person's a loser. And I'm not just trying to be mean, is that if you can uproot your life after a certain age, what you got going on? What type of person are you? My wife says, if you could live any place, where would you live? And I go, nowhere. I got this dojo wrangling around my neck. I can't just leave.
Right.
I can't go live in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I could never leave. I have too many, the dojos here, even if I wanted to, we can't go live in Texas or Oklahoma or someplace cheaper. We're stuck here.
Being all hardcore on people it didn't win me any votes. When I became the teacher, tons of people quit just because I became the teacher. Oh, David, I'm not following him. Man, that time he smashed me. And then once I became the teacher, I still smashed people.
Right.
And then people were like, this guy's a jerk. And then they quit.
They're like, I'm out of here.
And then you have to like lose and fail to become more humble and go, you know, like this Aikido teacher came from another state and we hung out and we're talking about students, and I told him how I don't say anything to students for the first 30 days. I don't enforce any rules. I don't make them bow. I don't make them take out their earrings. Nothing.
Right.
Because it's already hard enough to train. And then you're going to add more obstacles by making them take out their earrings, take out their piercings, you know, cut their hair, cut their fingernail, do all these things. Most of those people aren't going to make it anyways. But you will see that when they become hardcore, they will take out their earrings. They will change the patch on their uniform. They will become more serious.
Right.
And that you have to, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I give them the benefit of the doubt that this person is a good person. I don't got to whip them with my belt.
Right.
I don't have to slap them. You've seen me teach class lots of times. I go, hey, you going to fall or what?
Right.
And then if they don't fall, I just go bananas and start smashing them. But at first I go, hey, can you just fall down, please? I'm teaching the class. You don't have to like get all hardcore about it.
Right.
But that's the hard part is that I on a certain level, I think I'm weak. I just go, you know, I'm a weak person because I don't have the heart to
be hard.
I don't have the heart to do the hard things. One of the students, Dale, says, we say yes out of fear and no out of love. And I go, oh, yeah. And then I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me to go, you can't quit. You're going to be a teacher. I don't have it in me to go, if you don't stop that, I'm going to punch you in the face. I don't have the heart. I don't have the heart to tell people. I don't have the heart to say, you can't quit. You can't move away. You can't do any things that Furuya Sensei was able to do.
Right.
And so part of me thinks that I'm just a weak person. And I just go, because I don't have it in my heart.
But as you were talking, one of the things that came to my mind was one of the things that I think you have done where you really challenge people are exams, especially dawn exams. That you've had a methodology you've developed, the way you do it. And I think that for some people, it's the first time they're ever exposed to that kind of rigor.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if I've developed students to the level of Furuya Sensei. And, you know, like everyone uses my method to pass the Shodan exam. But when I was a white belt and I took the Shodan exam and I made this method up and I shared it with someone, I think you've heard me tell the story where I shared it with a student. I don't even remember who it was. And then he was going downstairs, passed by Furuya Sensei, and Furuya Sensei said, like, you better start training hard for your black belt test. And he goes, oh, that's okay. I have David's notes. And then Furuya Sensei grabbed the notes and then, David! And then tore the notes up and then told me I'm not allowed to share my methodology with anyone. And then I went, oh, okay. And again, at the time, I thought it was cruel. But then today I go,
people have to figure it out themselves.
Maybe I'm wrong giving people my method. My method is very systematic, right? And I use the same systematized thinking to pass the California licensing exam for acupuncture. Right? The first time I took it, I failed. I got a 53 because I used someone else's method, which their method sucked. And then I went, no, man, this person's method's wrong. And then I examined it, came up with a method, got 20% higher grade, right? But like, I'm afraid to let you dangle. I'm afraid to let you struggle. And maybe I should. And maybe I should slap people. Maybe I should be more hardcore. Maybe I should talk in Japanese language. You dum-dum, do it. And then you hit them and then, you know, whatever it is people do. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know if you should be shaming people or hitting them.
I don't know the answer to that. But I do know, like, I had another memory, which you probably remember this too, where Furuya Sensei in an intensive class, without hitting anybody, without yelling at anybody, he was able to enforce some rigor. And I remember it was in the winter or in the cold, 6 a.m, and he talks for like 40 minutes, and everyone's in Seiza. And then he's like, Shomenuchi Riminage, and people are literally like crippled because it's cold and in Seiza, and people are falling down. And part of me was thinking like maybe there's a sadism in that, but it was a way of like projecting without even touching you, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't remember either of those things. To me, I guess it was just like, oh, this is like training. That's the way it is. You know,
Yeah.
to me, it was like nothing. For some reason, like these things you guys remember, I do not remember. I remember sitting Seiza for a long time while Sensei yelled at us and then practicing afterwards. It's like, oh, it's Seiza day, I guess, you know, kind of thing.
Well, I remember that he would do that, and then he would go 50 break falls.
Right. That was
Yeah.
the other one.
But the thing is that every time when he did it in Thai, I just laughed because I trained myself very hard, and I'm very serious. And so sitting Seiza for an hour,
no problem.
no problem, because I trained myself to sit Seiza for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was single, I had a very low table. I sat Seiza while I ate. I sat Seiza while I watched TV to train myself to sit Seiza.
To be able to do it.
Yeah. And then when Sensei would yell, talk and then say, oh, Shomanichi Iriminage or
Whatever.
50 break falls, I'd be like, oh, no problem for me. But that's part of your training, is to be ready for anything.
Right.
Right. And so, like, is that a method of shaming people? Is that a method of... So here's a story where Sensei actually used the word shame. I was washing down outside, Uchimizu, and 2 visitors came from another dojo. And I capped the hose with my thumb, which Sensei hated. And I'm talking to him, and Sensei comes out. What's going on out here? And they we're from this dojo, da-da-da. And then Sensei grabs the hose, and we're fighting with the hose for a second.
Oh, my God.
And then he pulls the hose out of my hand. It squirts him in the face.
Oh.
He gets control of the hose. He tells me, take him to the back parking lot. So I take these 2 fools to the back parking lot. I run back, and then Sensei's washing down. He sees me coming, and he just chases me around the alley, squirting me with the hose. So he chases me around the alley, squirting me with the hose. And those guys came up, and they saw it, and they laughed. So I murdered these 2 dudes. I murdered them, and then I read in Aikido Today magazine about their journeys, and they talked about, I went to the first dojo we went to, Aikido Center in Los Angeles. There was a very spirited black belt there who really beat us up. And I mean, I beat the
crap out.
I smashed these 2, and one was an older guy and one was a younger guy. And they were going all over the world or the United States trying out Aikido dojos in their car. And we were the first dojo or something like that. And I picked them up and body slammed them and eating me. I mean, I was so angry. And then the next day, everyone was making fun of me. And the sensei said, I told everybody that you did that to shame you so you would never do it again.
Wow.
And I went, yeah. And so now, after that, whenever he grabbed the hose, I always pointed it at myself. Or when I hand him the hose, and hand it in a way that wouldn't squirt either of us.
Right.
But he actually said, I told everyone to shame you so that you would never do that again.
So, one of the things that's really interesting about this conversation is like we all have these really vivid memories. Do you think that the fact that we have these vivid memories is meaningful about those experiences?
I don't know. I was talking to Don Moriyama Sensei about this.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, his old stories from Iwama Dojo with Saito Sensei and drinking all night long and then training the next day half drunk or hungover. And he said, you ever notice that we look fondly back on these really horrible times?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, in war, right? These old timers, World War II vets talking fondly about their camaraderie. I don't know. Is it a rite of passage?
It seems like it might be.
So then am I robbing people of the rite of passage by not slapping them?
I mean, even nowadays, even in boot camp, they're not allowed to touch or curse at the recruits.
I think it's a really good point you make, Ken, because I actually think that people that come to our school think of it as a very disciplined place compared to the rest. Not necessarily other Aikido, just life. And so, your perspective is that maybe you're not hard enough, but I think for the average person that comes through, we still appear pretty hard, I think.
I agree also. But, as society changes, our dojo will always be above the standard
Right.
of what people considered like the baseline standard. We'll always be above that standard because we're martial artists.
Yeah, and like every like someone the other day said that they're asking me what's the way of like the teacher. And I said, the martial arts teacher, Aikido teachers, it's always be angry, always be mad. And I do feel that way. I mean, I see things and I'm like, what the heck is that?
Right.
And then I want to go, what are you, and get all mad. But then I have to like stop myself like, oh, like for instance, people will tell me something that I clearly know is incorrect. They'll retell a story. They'll tell me some factoid. They'll tell me something they saw on the news. And I go, oh, that's wrong in my mind.
Right.
But I just go, oh, and I don't say a word. Just like talk blabber on. Oh yeah, the average rainfall and then whatever it is. I just let them, because the thing is, it's just too much stress on me to be like, don't you mean? And it happens to my wife all the time. She'll say something and I'll go, and I'll go, and I'll just stop myself,
Right.
Because it doesn't gain me any points. It doesn't even matter. It's just causing me stress, so just let it go.
Right.
It's not going to help them either.
I had a really interesting experience in the last year. I changed jobs last year, went to a new firm. I'm a lawyer, pretty intense career. And I remember it was like 30 or 40 hours of training. And the last module I had to go to was an anti-bullying module, like 2 hours about how not to be a bully. And I was like, what? Like that's like a key component of corporate law is this feudalistic, the top pisses on the medium top to the middle to the bottom, the bottom to the very bottom. And it's just like, dun, 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 and they're like, you cannot do that anymore. Yeah. And so I think certainly for my job, like people routinely yelled at us. They threw things. They didn't hit you, but they got pretty close. And now apparently that can get you in trouble with HR. So I think like if people like me are seeing that change in hardcore work culture, they come here and things seem really rigorous, I think, compared to the way life is being enforced now.
Yeah, I mean, someone told me the story about Dojo Cho and how he threw Zodi at someone. And they're telling me all about it. They're recounting the story, how horrible it is. And then, and Dojo Cho threw their Zodi. And then I go, did it hit him? And he goes, but that's not the point. I go, yeah, that's the point, man. I go, that's traditional training.
Right.
And you got it light if it didn't hit you. You don't think the person going to hit you with a Zodi? I mean, they intentionally missed.
Right.
Just to create their, show you that they're upset, to create make a
feeling.
point.
Right.
Right. That maybe he's just a bad, Dojo Cho does not know how to throw a Zodi, but everybody knows how to throw that type of thing, right?
Right.
But, like, it's a real fine line because, again, it comes down to the person who did it and the person who experienced it.
Yeah.
One person can say it's abuse, and then they leave. And then they're on the news or they're on social media going, man, Ken Watanabe, you know what he said to me? You know those dudes? And then you go, sorry.
Right.
And then we have to fire him because if we don't, it's going to be a nightmare. So we publicly fire him so that to save the dojo. But I don't know. I mean, it's really, really a fine line about doing things because you did them and doing things because you think that this will help.
So one of the things as both of you were talking, I was thinking of the clip that we showed at the very beginning. And he talks about not just what we think of as like obvious, like hitting, yelling, but talks about things like saying, bowing or looking at a picture, that those things are a form of like ritualistic dominance or hazing, What do you both think about that in connection with Aikido? Because, I mean, historically, like people used to have trouble coming if they were really, religious in another religion. They'd come and like, I don't want to bow, and misunderstood it. But I'm just curious, like, do you think that Nunes has a point, or is it not applicable to our type of training?
It's not that it's not applicable. It's not applicable that he's wrong.
He's wrong.
To get good, you must sacrifice something. Time, money, energy, ego, right? So when you bow and you say arigato or you say onegaishimasu, that's just one little tick of giving up your ego, right? And so if I don't bow to this picture, how much ego do I have? If I don't bow to my partners, how much ego do I have? If I don't say thank you, if I don't say please, all those things. This is a warrior art. This is a martial art, military art. If there's something you talk about all the time. You're trying to not create a misunderstanding.
That's correct. Yeah, all the etiquette is all the etiquette is so your intentions are completely clear. So sometimes if it means hurting someone's feelings, at least they know what you're thinking. So, the etiquette was based on, I could come up on a checkpoint. If I don't find the etiquette, I'll be lit up. Whereas if I do follow the etiquette, the protocol, they'll be like, this person is a friendly. So I'll let them come to the gate and then I'll question them. If they don't know the etiquette, then I kill them right there. If they do follow the etiquette, then they're one of us.
It's a secret handshake.
It's a secret handshake. Like I think Sensei was talking about, this is anecdotal, but in China, the triads, when they come to a door, they would have to recite a very complicated poem. And if you didn't know the poem, you're not one of us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the bowing for both of you, because I know that I'm sure, Sensei, you and I have talked about this. Some people believe when you bow, especially to the teacher when they just taught, you bow all the way down. Or some people are like bow, but they want to keep their eyes. What is the more appropriate style of bow for at a traditional school?
Hard to say. In Buddhism, they say the person who bows, you should try to bow and show more respect than the other person shows you, right? That you bow to show your level of humility, and that looking when you bow is aggressive.
Yeah, it's supposed to be incorrect because Sensei told me, if you're a martial artist, you wouldn't have to like eyeball that person as you bow. You should be able to bow, not see him, and sense when the attack is coming out of peripheral or just out of peripheral vision or whatever. You wouldn't have to look because, like you said, it's a fear-based reaction. I'm not good enough to sense when you're going to attack me, so I have to eyeball you when I bow and come up like that.
Once I was at a seminar, teaching the seminar with another person, and they asked me why I bowed so low. I bowed so low to let my behind raise up. And then they said, that is not samurai. And I said, trying to be diplomatic. Everyone does it the way their teacher does it. So, it's just, and then they, but you're not a samurai. Yes, I'm not a samurai. Neither is Ruth Sensei. You guys aren't a samurai. And I was like, you know what, man? Neither are you.
Right.
So I mean, these people talk about all this mumbo jumbo about being samurais and following the samurai way. How much of that's real?
Right.
Right. And that comes back to, this idea of shaming rituals. If I know you don't like this when people ask me, they go, what do I call you? And I go, I don't know, David is fine. And then I know you always take him aside and go, don't call him David. He's Sensei, he's Ito Sensei, whatever. I just don't care about stuff like that. And then I don't need to enforce my dominance over others, so I don't really care what people call me. As my welding teacher once said, you can call me anything you want, just don't call me late for dinner. And like you really start getting all caught up in titles and shaming rituals and all these things, and you really, really figure it out that it's just your ego. The whole idea of, is Aikido effective? Is Aikido real martial art? It's just caught up. your ego caught up in fear. Oh, am I going to be good enough? Will I be able to beat anybody up?
Right.
And then you're afraid. So we got to make this effective. We're bringing realism back to training. And then you go, you know what? We're going to whip each other with the belts. That will bring, effectiveness back. Hey, I'm going to kick you in the face. When you get black belt, you get a kick in the face by me. It's like, what is that? How's that going to help? It doesn't. So, I mean, that's the hard part, is that like you got to sit back and judge for yourself if these things should be done or not done.
Right.
You know, like there's a real danger of fetishizing these things and just adding stuff just randomly, just, I feel like doing this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to be like a geisha today or something like that, you don't have to.
My name's John Smith. My son's name was Koichi Smith.
Yeah. Koichi no something, something, something. Like, oh, that's the way, like, even Japanese people don't, like, put something no kami or something like that, you're just,
But that's that thing. It becomes an affectation.
Yeah, it's an affectation.
And then I whip you when you make a black belt. I choke you. I do all these things as a form of dominance so that I can stay on the top. And then, like sometimes when you teach, you just teach things that people can't get so that you'll always be dominant over them. And so like, see, like the martial arts is only about managing your ego. So everything you do or teach has to be run through this filter of, is it my ego? I slapped that person. Did they need to be slapped? Was it me that slapped them? Is it I was having a bad day. My boss yelled at me. His name's Tom. Another different person named Tom showed up. So I lit that dude up. And then when you figure out you've made a mistake, you go, hey man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was having a bad day. But if you can't say you're sorry, that's a lot of ego there. And Furuya Sensei only one time did Furuya Sensei ever say he was sorry. And we got into it all the time. And so only one time in my entire 17 years and 1 day career with Furuya Sensei, he only said sorry to me once.
Wow.
And that's because he referred to a person who was the same rank as me as Sensei. Oh, Tom Sensei. And then realized he made a mistake. And then afterwards, he goes, oh, sorry about that. And I was like, I don't care. Yeah. But all the other times when he was wrong and I was right, he never said he was sorry. I mean, that doesn't make him a bad person, but that kind of dictates this idea of ego. That maybe he had a big ego. I don't know. He's not alive today to accuse him of his crimes. So the only thing I can think of is that when I make a mistake, I try to show my humility and I say I'm sorry. If someone came to me and goes, man, you did this thing to me and you hurt my feelings, I would go, dude, I am sorry. I was trying to figure it out too. So, I mean, shame rituals, hazing, do they have their place? Sure. Do they make good Aikidoists? Maybe. Then this is just my opinion. By and large, being rough, hazing, shaming people only breaks people. It doesn't build them up. And so I don't know what is right and I don't know what is more effective. But I just don't do it because I just don't have the heart to do it. So no, you shouldn't shame people.
Right.
But man, sometimes it seems like they need it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think if you were a certain person, when you make a mistake, you would naturally feel ashamed, like, oh, I shouldn't do that anymore.
Right.
You wouldn't need,
you assume.
Yeah, like a lot of times when Sensei would get mad at me, I was like, he didn't need to get mad at me because I already felt so bad that I made that mistake. Like I already slapped myself in the face for making that mistake.
Yeah, it's like when you got that car accident.
Oh, when I was driving Sensei?
Yeah.
I felt so bad. But Sensei did not get mad at me. I thought he would go off on me. But I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Sensei. Like, no, he did not get mad at me, which is really, really weird. I think he would just go off on me. But I think he knew how bad I felt. Like, I felt so, excuse my language. We were on the way to look at someone's swords. And that was my nightmare, getting into an accident while driving Sensei, and I know exactly what I did wrong.
So I think it's been a really interesting conversation. I mean, the Evandro Nunes piece, raises a lot of interesting questions. And it sounds like from listening to both of you that there really has been a development in the way we teach and the way things are experienced here over the last 30 years plus.
I don't know if it's right or wrong. Like I always say, the best teacher is the one that's the most unreasonable. And it's the most unreasonable because you don't know where this is all going. You have no experience.
Right.
You're coming to the teacher because you have no experience. If you have experience, why do you need a teacher? So the teacher obviously can see the landscape that you can't see and is going to guide you to this place. And that you got to have faith. And if the teacher hits you, you really should just talk to the teacher about it. One of the worst things that Fury Sensei ever did to me is that he called all the black belts up into his office on Christmas, like December 24th or something. And he gave every person a Christmas present. Ken Watanabe, here you go, buddy. Here, Bill D'Angelo gave and then didn't give me anything. And then he goes, okay, everybody, did I miss anybody? And I just sat there like all quiet and embarrassed.
Yeah.
And we left. And I felt like I was so hurt and angry and held it against him for the longest time. Years later, when I was kicked out and trying to find my way back, I said, I'm mad at Sensei. And I wrote down all the things that I was mad about. And that was one of them. And then I went line by line through every single one. And when I came to that one, I said, I cannot be 100% sure if it was purposeful. So because I can't be 100% sure it was purposeful, I can't really be angry about it.
Interesting.
But that taught me that if you have a problem, then you should talk to that person about it. So when he slighted me or he shamed me, I should have went to him and said, hey, Sensei, did I do something wrong? What happened? And I mean, not that I want a Christmas present, but I mean, everyone got one, and I feel like you singled me out.
Right.
And then he could go, oh,
crap.
You're the one that the Apple Watch fell behind the chair, and we couldn't figure out who it was for because everybody got an Apple Watch, and we had this one extra, and I said at the end, did everybody get something? And everybody said, yes. We thought that we just miscounted. Oh, here you go, buddy. Right. You're doing a solid job. But because I didn't use my voice, I just sat back and was hurt.
Right.
And so, the person who did it and the person who received it, there's a misunderstanding.
Right.
So when a person slaps you or does something like that, and you realize it wasn't intentional, you can go and say, hey, man, I know I made a mistake in the ukemi, but did you need to slap me? And then you can go, whoa, I was in a bad place. I really shouldn't be slapping people. And then you can say you're sorry, and then the problem's solved.
Right.
But by and large, I really don't know if shaming, hazing, physical bodily injury, things like that, works to make you a better Aikidoist. And then by and large, the abused become abusers.
Right.
So it probably should engage in it.
I think that's a really good place to stop.
Yeah.
But you should be bowing as a sign of respect.
Yeah.
Not a sign of subservience. Okay, so this was the first podcast of 2025. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything else, leave them in the comment section, and we will try to address them. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like or subscribe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.